Hello, everyone. I'm Sergio Serrato, one of the co-directors of partnerships for Nucleate Arizona and a biology PhD candidate here at ASU studying the evolution of drug resistance and the malaria parasite. So before we continue with our Genesis spotlight, I want to see a raise of hands for anyone that has never been to a Nucleate event before and it's their first time. Nice. Okay. We have a couple here. So if you've never been here, I just want to kind of go through what Nucleate really is. Nucleate's a global nonprofit organization aimed at empowering the next generation of scientists by basically focusing on educating today's academic trainees, right? And we do this through multiple ways. A lot of it is teaching students about bio-entrepreneurship and how they can take their discoveries in the lab and create a company with it. And also, we're trying to connect scientists with other business people and just people in the biotech field so they can learn about alternate career paths that are also not promoted in the academic system. So if you want more information on Nucleate, feel free to talk to one of us here today or send us an email online. And we're going to kind of get started. So today I'm actually very happy to introduce Dr. Donald Munroe. He has an expansive career in biotech. I'm just going to run through a little bit of his accolades so we can kind of get familiar, of who he is. So he has a master's from McMaster's University, a PhD in cancer genetics from the University of Toronto. After his PhD, he was a postdoctoral research fellow at R.W. Johnson Pharmaceutical Institute, where he then transitioned into a research scientist role there. And then he held various managerial and director roles at companies such as NPS Pharmaceuticals and Corning, to where he then held multiple vice president positions of R&D at multiple companies such as Invitrogen, Beckman Coulter, Roche, and Becton Dickinson. Then ultimately became the CSO and Senior VP of Business Development at Vermillion, Inc. And currently, he is the principal and founder of Stratagem Healthworks, a consulting company focused on empowering diagnostics, life sciences, and AI-driven companies to break through barriers and excel in today's complex healthcare landscape. So as you can see, he's held multiple roles, bounced around, and ultimately created his own company. So we would like to thank you, for your time. And if there's anything else you would like to add before we go to the discussion, feel free to add it.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm really thrilled to be here. It is my first time at Nucleate as well, so I'm in the same boat as some of you here. I met Sergio and Josh back in May at a conference that was held here in Arizona, and I really like the energy that they have, and I like the energy and creativity that everybody at this stage of the career has, and really trying to find how they can make a difference in the world. Where they're meant to be, how they can turn their hidden superpowers into things that are actually affecting people. And so I'm really privileged to be here. And, I guess no company ever wanted me enough that I stayed with the same company for 30 years. So that would be one way of looking at it. So, but wherever I go, I try and learn something, I try and contribute, and I really love healthcare as a space. It's something we can all relate to. We all have, loved ones or even ourselves who have different medical conditions. And it's like the meeting of so many interesting things from the commercial side. How do you make money? But also, how do you do great things in the world in terms of impacting patients? How are physicians going to use whatever it is that you produce? How manufacturable are they? How would you get them cleared through the FDA? And so on. So it's really a really interesting game to be in, because a lot of things have to go right in order to have even one product. Being with a startup will be really great for some of you to sort of see the soup to nuts of it all, and also to really get a grasp on like, why would this thing be needed in the first place? And I think we should all go really deep on that. But at the same time, the how becomes important over time. So as you start to get into it, you're going to find that there is kind of barrier after barrier once you start working with people who have been there and done it, in regulatory, in quality, in operations, commercial. You're going to start to connect the dots and really see how you can do a better job of bringing these innovations to market, faster, better, cheaper. So I'm here to really not act like I'm here and you're at the beginning. It's more, let's have a conversation. Let's have some fun while we're doing it. And I have given, is it Aiden? What was your name?
Aiden, yeah.
Okay, cool. Gave him my business card as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, do that or pop up on LinkedIn, be happy to talk to you. I think that's really all I had to say. So this is for you. So make sure that you ask questions, and if there's something on your mind, don't be afraid to say so.
To be honest, I would say that a lot of our experiences are pretty similar to the startup world. At least for me, I came into ASU in a startup lab. So it is also figuring out how to set up, a lab space properly, and then develop questions as to why you want to go down the specific rabbit hole.
Yes.
And so we all have this, right? And we all want to transition out, meaning that we all kind of found a reason why we don't want to necessarily continue pursuing research. And if you do, more power to you.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to know a little bit about what inspired, that shift from academia to industry, and if there's any defining moments or mentors that helped shape, your early career interest in science.
Sure. I participated in a panel of pre-med students at University of Maryland a few months ago. And on the panel, there were CEOs and there were esteemed MDs and so on. And of course, they had a nice little bio about me, which is great. And I was thinking about it, that it makes it appear that we had this magic entitlement and just rose through the ranks and had the success story. And my life's been nothing like that. And we talked about it last night. So I think it's important to share that, because most people aren't born with a silver spoon. Many people are struggling against or with different things that don't make them the perfect candidate. So if you like some of the things that I've done, you should be aware that I was a high school dropout. I was in a family where both my parents had mental illness at different times. And so it became an environment where I really had to kind of get out to even find who I am, just clear my head. I didn't complete high school education at that time. That's back in Canada. Instead, I went to work in a steel factory. So I worked in a steel factory doing shift work for about 3 years. And all the time thinking, my dad and my family, maybe too smart for their own good. We had lots of books, but in terms of what are we going to do with it? It wasn't so clear. There came a night in the factory where 2 a.m. at lunchtime, 2 guys got into a fist fight over a quarter that one of them found on the ground. And watching them go at it over this quarter, I'm like, this is insane. I need to get the hell out of here. And so I really started getting more intentional about what is it going to take to get back on the rails and do what I believed I could do, which really had to do with science, nature, things like that.
How did you get that shift then, though? From that, steel obviously is not science.
No, it's not science. Well, I mean, there's science behind it, but it's not where I wanted to spend my time. I had to invest in doing night school courses, correspondence courses to get basically an equivalence in Canada, I guess a GED that you have here.
Okay.
So that allowed me to get into a school. First, I thought I'd be a veterinarian. Turned out I wasn't smart enough or hardworking enough to be a veterinarian. Then I thought maybe medical school. I got an interview with a medical school, but I was probably too arrogant, to be honest, at that stage of my life. Wasn't going to be my fate, but I did work in a lab one summertime. And it was a lab that did lab developed tests for inborn errors of metabolism, things that cause death in infants from neurodegeneration or skin diseases and things like that. And that kind of gave me the bug that you really could actually affect somebody's life here, and that would be really cool. So that started me down the path of getting a bachelor, a master's, a PhD. I decided that I needed to get the PhD, and the school that I was at didn't really have the latest science in the PhD realm. So I switched from my master to University of Toronto, got my PhD. At that time, gene cloning was all the rage, way back in the old days. Got a job with a pharmaceutical company, cloning entire gene families that could be useful for drug discovery, ones that had never been cloned before. So that part was pretty cool. But I realized I may end up spending my whole life working on failure, because that's mostly what happens in the pharmaceutical world. It takes 5,000 drug candidates and $1 billion to get from the beginning to one drug being on the market. somewhere along the line, number one, I learned, all the human genes are going to be cloned pretty soon. What will you do with the next 30 years or 20 years of your career? So I started thinking about that. And what is my renewable skill? And I really felt like I really like platform technology that can be tamed so that it can be used not in one product, but in many products. And that led me to jump out from the pharmaceutical world and go to Corning. And Corning has done everything from dishware to optical fiber to flat panel displays across a wide swath. And they've come up with like a really cool model for how to do it, which is more or less like if you've ever heard of a stage gate model for products, products typically will go through from idea to proof of concept.
Okay.
From proof of concept to feasibility, from feasibility to development to validation, and then eventually, clearance and so on.
So it's taking you like a next step further, like in our PhDs, we kind of like proof of concept it, and then either leave it at that or continue to go down.
And it's very important, when you're developing products that are going to be used on human beings, to make sure that everything has been, like all the risk has been taken out, or, before you launch the product. But Corning had a little bit different flavor of that. They said, we want to do that for platform technology. So if they think about optical fiber, like how do you take glass and spin it out into like a 1,000-mile cable and then have light transmitted through it, without losing the light, and being able to harvest it at the other end. And once they invest in it, they want to make not one product, but maybe thousands of products. So in the time when I joined, optical fiber was the biggest product. There's something called product vitality index. It's like, how good is your company at doing stuff that's new and innovative? And one way to measure it would be to look at, if you took all the revenue of your company and said, what percentage of that revenue came from products that you launched just within the last 3 years? 3 years, all right? At Corning, at the time I was there, 70%. So even though they're a multi-billion-dollar company, but most of the revenue was not coming from things that they had been doing for a long time. It came from the latest and greatest in optical fiber. So they would make 1,000 flavors of optical fiber and used for different applications. So
And as the head of R&D, you were leading that. You were leading like how they.
Funny part, no, I actually got hired to be the bridge between the commercial people and the R&D. So when I went and talked to them.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I went and talked to them. They were looking for a manager of development. And I walked out with the director of technology commercialization. So when I was there, I was like, I'm here because I know you guys have this method that you use to really scale up innovation to a very large degree. And I would love to learn that. And so that's why I'm here. And whatever job you have, I would take it. But when I was there, I was saying, you guys are really great at a lot of things, but I would imagine that proteins and bioinformatics are probably pretty difficult for you, new to you. You don't do much of that. And then they told me that they had $100 million project that they'd been struggling with for a number of years because of biology, because of bioinformatics. And although they tried to work with the R&D group, but the R&D group was kind of doing their own thing and not really solving the problems that needed to be solved. So they ended up hiring me as director of technology commercialization, which was really work with the R&D people, put together goals that are meaningful, and then make sure that we're solving the problems that really matter. So I would say that was my first step in going from doing a job that is small and, based on my work at my lab, into thinking about something that matters to the whole company. And I've never looked back on that. Since then, I would just say it's something to think about. If you want to get out of the lab, or if you want to move beyond that into other roles, you probably need to study the company. What are they actually working on? What are they saying to investors about what they're trying to do? And then what's the no kidding, drop dead things that must happen in a particular year? Now that's a place where if you have the right skills and capabilities, you might be able to lean into that. So I'd say that a little combination of accident and purpose has kept me moving through my career from chapter to chapter, never knowing what might come next and being open to it. But at the same time, the end in mind never really wavered, which is that, I'm not an academic guy, I'm an applied science guy. And what I really want to do is make a difference in healthcare. And what I want to do in healthcare, instead of just using drugs and devices, which are really things that, all right, something really bad's happened to this patient. Now we gotta fix them up and help them
Yeah.
get well. Diagnostics and AI enabled healthcare are really where I think that we should play more, because that's really going earlier in the patient journey before they had some sort of catastrophic event, and knowing that something's going to happen to them and how could we intervene before it ever happens. So
So this is like advice for all of us then to maybe learn more about how AI can be actually utilized in a company. Is that kind of what you're kind of telling us right
not
now?
really, because I think AI is the flavor du jour. Right now it's AI. Some time ago, it might have been like molecular modeling or who knows what. So, but I think what matters is number one, what really lights your candle? Why were you put on the planet? Do you even know? And it's worth spending time on that and not just taking it. Well, my parents said I should get an MD, and so I'm going to medical school. I mean, that's fine, but I would just say that probably in each of you, there's a spark of something that you were meant to do. And if you can find it and kind of harness that, then it's like I say, sort of semi-random. I don't know what comes next, but purpose-driven. It has kind of a North Star that helps me know if I have two choices, do I go left or go right, based on what's possible.
So then I love all that what you just said right now. I guess more of something I was questioning a bit is we're all scientists here. We don't all have a really huge business background, and we're all our projects are focused on tiny niche aspects of science.
Right.
How did your PhD, what skills did you take from your PhD? And if from your postdoc, did you utilize in these roles? Or was it all right, I have this new managerial role. Now I gotta get an MBA, or I gotta start reading business stuff. Or was it
I would say that my
translatable skills?
PhD probably carried me through the first 5 to 10 years and about two positions.
The postdoc didn't?
The postdoc was part of that. So I basically did my first position was a postdoc and then a research scientist, and then they ended up closing the entire site. And so I was out on the street, in a town that didn't have much biotech, but I did find another biotech pharma. I took a job there. But even the fact that, I had bought my first house and had a second child on the way, then was out on the street competing with all my buddies for almost no jobs out there, made me think what am I doing here? And what happens when there's no more genes to clone? And what will my renewable skill be? And I started thinking, next job, I need to come into it with a totally different mindset. So even the second biotech job that I had, they had a big problem. They had a drug candidate which was making its way to FDA with all the clinical data, but nobody had ever found out the mechanism of action of that drug. And they suspected it was a clonable gene, but people had tried to clone it for 5 years or more, big companies and small, were unable to do it. So coming in there, they sort of said, if you could do this and you need to do it, you're either going to be a hero or a zero.
And then you're out on the street again.
Yeah, it could be, if you can't do it, within a year, one of the big drug companies is going to be all over this, and then that's game over. But if you can do it, we're looking for people who really can do things that are difficult like that. So the biotech stuff carried me, the gene cloning and so on carried me through that. By the time I got to Corning, though, remember now it's not leaning on molecular biology, other than the fact that they were trying to do DNA microarrays. So bioinformatics and DNA, I understood, how you could deal with that. But now it's the manufacturing and everything else. And I'll just tell you a little snippet. If you can find out where a company is struggling, and it may be at a big picture level or it could be at a small picture level, and don't be there trying to pitch yourself and sell yourself, or get the job. Have a conversation about what they're struggling with and where your capabilities may fit in. I spoke with when I was interviewing, I spoke with the senior vice president of manufacturing for Corning. He was the guy who was charged with making these DNA microarrays. And he was saying, we've had, as we got our first products out there, we're getting complaints from people that the spots are lighting up in the wrong places. They know that this could not be true. And so we must have a problem in how we're doing the spotting of the DNA, or this wouldn't even be happening. When I asked him about the product, describe it to me, he said, well, it's really got 3 parts. It's got a glass slide. We make the world's flattest glass. It's absolutely perfect. The glass slide has this coating on it. gamma phosphorylsilane. That's how we lay down the DNA. And then the third part is 10,000 spots of goop, the DNA that is the spots on the microarray. And I had to say to him, like, from my perspective, you got 10,002 parts on this, because each DNA is its own little creature.
Mhm.
And if you don't know where it came from, if you don't know how it was quality controlled, it's not surprising to me that it lights up in the wrong places. So when I went in, even though I had, like working with R&D was the big job, but what I had to solve for them, get bioinformatics. So we ended up saying, we're not gonna grow it, like home grow it. We'll get a contract organization to come in and teach bioinformatics to the R&D.
Is that your idea, or that was like?
That was mine. That
Okay.
was more or less, that's one thing we'll do. And the second is the DNA that we got that's lighting up in the wrong place came from a source. And that source is really like garbage in, garbage out type of source. So we're gonna fire that vendor as soon as we can find another vendor that has better qualified materials. And the third thing is we need an electronic or manufacturing execution system, meaning if I get plates that contain all the DNA and we're going to spot the DNA, then how do I know as you go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, and end up on the slide that we didn't mix it up and put it in the wrong place?
This is all like checks and balances of like creating quality control its entire time as we didn't have that.
True. And also it's also, let's say, the bigger picture design includes what happens in manufacturing. So I can't afford to be, well, I'm R&D, I don't really care about that stuff. No, it translates in every step downstream.
It
So
has to.
I want to go to the people who have the problem on the
Yeah.
manufacturing floor or in quality control and say, what are you seeing? Oh, really? Well, let's dig into it a little bit, come up with some ideas of what could be going on. And then we'll use data to decide whether it is or is not the problem. So we're able to chase it down, put it right, and then next thing you know, that wasn't a problem anymore. So I think that whatever your job is, I would just say, connect the dots. What is easy, but actually not valuable is people who just come in, they don't care what's happening to the left or the right, and they do their own thing. And they say, I don't know about you, but my work is perfect. No, we got to own the value chain from soup to nuts. How does this thing work? And if I have buddies that are struggling, then I got a problem too. Anybody like Formula One around here? Anybody? We got one at least.
Go one.
All right. How many people participate in the pit stop?
Oh, so many people.
Yeah, about 22 people. And they'll change the tires and do everything they need to do in about 2.5 seconds, because everybody contributes and they all know their place. But if one person screws up, the whole team is done. You could lose the championship over one mistake with one wheel. So think of healthcare and diagnostics in that light, that it isn't a one-person show. Everything has to work together. It's how people live together. And I'd say that's what was one of my biggest lessons was, it's very often not really the science that's the problem. It's like the organizational setup that's the problem.
It's also like, it's like creating it, also like how it seems like for you, it's like being the point of contact, like opening up collaboration and also seeing things from a bird's eye view. Like we're all taught, I guess, to see things at not from a bird's eye view. So it's like we have to transition our thoughts and just our view and scope as we transition into biotech, because it can make us more valuable. And obviously it was very valuable. Like companies found this skill very valuable because, I mean, obviously you basically bounce from high roll to high roll to high roll, right? And to kind of switch topics a little bit, I just kind of want to know, like, with each transition, like, how did you recognize when it was time to move to that next opportunity? Because some of us could get stuck and just like, all right, like, I'll stay here for 5-10 years and then be like, I actually don't even really like this job, or like, I've hit this ceiling.
Yeah.
And it seems like you beat that ceiling. So like, when did you identify at a company?
I'd say it's happened over and over again, but I will just say this, either life will happen to you or you'll take some control over your own life. And so when I think about my career, and I've thought this ever since getting laid off that very first time, my career will probably be in chapters. And there'll be a time when that chapter is just right and I can learn and I can grow and I can be rewarded for it. And then there'll come a time when it isn't working for me anymore. Maybe I can't get a promotion. Maybe the company lays me off. I've been laid off 6 times in my career because biotech is a very tumultuous place. A lot of stuff happens. You either cave in and like, oh, that's it for me. I'll, become a Walmart greeter or something, or no, I'm going to reinvent myself and I'll go figure out the next thing. So I've been in many different areas, pharmaceuticals, life science research, diagnostics. In general, I've been, okay, what am I really trying to do with my overall career? That would be like the big goal. And I would say my big goal is I want the entire toolbox of a C-suite R&D leader who could be a partner to the CEO and the CFO, running enterprise R&D, cross-functional R&D for everything. But you don't get it in one job. So part of it then is, right, I'm going to deliberately target jobs that will teach me something I don't know. There came a time when I became responsible.
You probably don't have that skill set as well then, right?
No, I have enough to get in the door, but not enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was scary as hell. I mean, I became leader of global program and portfolio management, never having done that. But I had organized my small unit to do our annual strategic planning cross-functionally, to do our program check-ins cross-functionally. And when we got a new CEO and they're like, this place is not working the way it's supposed to. Oh, but over there's a guy where they're all working in harmony. Let's have him come and do this at the corporate level. And I arrived there and I'm like, I don't even know what I signed up for. But luckily the problems became evident. Then it's just like, all right, roll up your sleeves and especially work with the stakeholders and try and put in place things that are not only working, but are repeatable. Because that way you could turn your back on it without immediately having it go up in flames again. I've had some jobs where, yeah, you could put it right, but as soon as you go away, they're like, I need you back here. It's not working again. So sustainability, which really comes down to processes, people, and programs to really come up with a better way to run things on a long range basis, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and like that's a perfect point. I mean, like you've managed, like I said, you managed global organizations as well. Like, what are key characteristics in developing like a cohesive and excellent team? Like, what are some tips on how we can cultivate that? We can do that here, within our own chapter, but also like when we leave as well.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, I guess the first thing is I would say that whatever you're doing, it's useful to elevate your perspective a lot. And so, for example, if you are even a senior director or whatever, which is midway through like the management chain, you should understand what's going on in the world, why your company exists. How does the work that you're doing play a part in that? So basically get context, get the big picture, because only then can you be a creative force with vision that can actually pull off things that are bigger than your own job. And then secondly, recognize that companies are just collections of human beings. So a lot of the things that go wrong are because the human beings, either you got the wrong people, but that's usually not the problem, or it's being run the wrong way. People are not set up for success. Maybe nobody's listening.
How do you identify if people are not set up for success in that?
I talk to people. So if I go in, I typically would, talk to the higher ups. What do you want from me? How would you measure success? My peers, hey, how is it working with the previous R&D person? What would you like to see different going forward? The people who report to me, are you aware of what the goals are for this entire unit for the entire year? If they don't know, or if they're only focused on their own little piece of the puzzle, you have a problem. And then skip levels. I do pizza lunches with random collections of 6 or 8 people. Hey, thank you for joining for lunch. You're my advisory panel for today. Congratulations, being part of the panel. And your job is to tell me what I need to know and what we should be doing different going forward. And what you learn is many of them are operating in the dark. They have very little idea of what's really going on. And a lot of the middle management are being very protective and controlling because they don't want to jeopardize their own job. They just want to keep it. And that's really not what the world needs. The world needs us to be flexible and agile and really do the right thing. And you don't ever do that if you're just trying to protect your little piece of turf. You want to be a better leader. You want to be a next-gen leader. Get rid of that mindset. And here's the kicker. What does a PhD teach you to do?
To think.
Oh, that's one thing.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Well, behaviorally, what does it teach you to do behaviorally? work alone, say that you're the first person to ever discover
Yeah.
something. I remember I was doing my master's and I saw into some really interesting stuff, biochemical genetics of some of these inherited diseases. I talked to my supervisor. I said, I found papers back from the 1950s where they're using acetone precipitation and they were able to see the same forms of protein that we're looking at right now. And she said, that is absolutely not true. And I never want to say that again. We're using biochemical methods, which are totally different than the ones that they did. And there's no proof that what they were discovering is what we're discovering. So our papers have to come out, like they're new. And it wasn't she was
Totally
about
disregarded.
yeah, she
Fine.
basically, yeah, but the reason is she's driven by the incentives to be a tenured professor, and publish enough. Everybody is a human being, so they're gonna do the things that are rewarded and they're gonna do less of the things that are punished. But in the industry, like I said, if you want to be a Formula One team, you better get over that. And if you want to be a leader that is successful, you also need to get over that. You need to embrace collaboration. You need to encourage people to contribute and care. And that's very right brain activity. It's the emotional intelligence side of things. It's not the IQ side. And that's where you'll see that there are R&D leaders and any kind of leaders that never should have been leaders in the first place. They're narcissistic, controlling. There's a list of behaviors that they have. And then there are people who you would want to hang around them. They teach you stuff. They give you autonomy. They allow you to fail, but with some support. They don't blame you for it. They help you through it. So, I mean, the best leaders are in that category. And watch, as your life goes on, you'll be able to see, like I do, that there's just those two kinds of leaders, the one that want you under their thumb and I don't care about you, and the ones that really want to see what you can do. And I'd like to believe I'm in that second category. I had to learn it though. I had a dark period in my middle career where I was trying to succeed by engineering everything because I'm really smart. And then later I had to realize that is not
To
working.
prove you're the expert, so people feel like you have value.
Yeah, I felt like my authority and respect comes from my intellect and my ability to have the right answers.
Huh.
And now later in my career, I realized that's a sign of a bad manager. And really the better is maybe amongst us all, we have the answers. And so rather than, let's say, sitting in my office and going out and say, I thought of what we need to do, and you do this and you do that and you do that. I'd rather say, why don't we all get in a room, in a workshop? It's going to last 2 days. We're going to start with a problem statement and we're going to explore it hackathon style, and we're all going to contribute. And the best ideas are going to come to the top, and we're going to agree on how we're going to collaborate and move this ball forward. So one job that I took that I had never done before was with Roche, Ventana Medical Systems. And I was responsible for research and early development. How much experience did I have in histopathology? 0. And now I arrive on this job. People are talking a foreign language I don't even understand in terms of, the fixation and the
How did you
antigen.
get this job? Is this like you just applied it, or like you?
I talked my way into it, I guess would be one thing, but what they realized is their problems had nothing to do with that science. It had everything to do with organization and the way the place was run. So when they hired me, I tried to disarm people by saying, I'm not here to tell you how to do your special stains or biomarker stains. I'm here to help you be successful. So you're going to bring the science. I'm going to bring the organizational best practices. Together, we're going to do that. And so there was a time where we had a workshop that lasted all week, and it had members of every department from Ventana and people at different levels, from VP all the way to some of the people working on the floor. And we just asked, like, what is this group all about? And it turned out that what it had been doing for the past 5 years was not what it should have been doing. That's what I learned from that. And we agreed on that. And then secondly, we said, if we're going to have a place, we need to partner. We can't be an ivory tower that's coming up with cool stuff and throwing it over the wall. We need to agree on what are our roadmaps. How do those roadmaps affect operations, quality, regulatory, and then how are we going to collaborate on programs which bring people together in a series of projects, one after the other, that relentlessly move the needle. So we're talking about what's the future of tissue. I don't know if any of you follow this stuff, but not only do they want more biomarkers, which is cool, but some people are saying you don't need the biomarkers at all. You could actually get the signals straight from the tissue using AI and deep learning. The tissue will tell the story and tell you what the biomarkers maybe do or don't tell you. So to be ahead of the game, you actually have to think about what comes after our products.
Mhm.
So that would be part of it, is like, are we reimagining the world of the future and then betting like small bets on experiments that could prove or disprove, what could happen. So fast forward 2-3 years, we now have 5 programs that really cover the different things that we think we need to do in order to stay ahead of the crowd going forward. And that really generates, like, if we're spending $100 million on R&D every year, that's what the money's spent on is those programs.
Yeah, we can
Karen.
take it.
Did you ever experience opposition from the upper management when you tried to reorganize things a little bit? And if so, how did you work with it?
Yes, and it varies, based on company culture and based on individuals. So I mean, number one, I want to understand what I'm getting into when I join a company. Is it a lost cause?
Right.
All right, I need to understand who would be my sponsors, who are people that want this change.
The internal champions, basically.
Could be internal champions. Of course, there's going to be people maybe that are secretly hoping that this will work. Others that are secretly hoping that it will fail. But if there aren't a couple of people that are, preferably, yes.
Oh,
Well, because it's gonna move somebody's cheese, right? Somebody's gonna feel like they lost something.
yeah.
Even if you said, hey, our departments are gonna work together. I never had to do that before. Why would I attend meetings with operations when I'm supposed to be working in the lab on the next cool invention?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I think we need to really understand the human psyche a little bit and emotions, the emotional intelligence in order to make progress. But so I want to find sponsors that will get behind it. And then I want to connect with the needs of people. So in a way, I need to do my own product development by understanding what the needs are. What are the needs of senior management? That's why I said interviews. What about my peers? What do they think? What's good and bad? What about people at the bottom? What are they feeling like? All right, out of all that, we can't do everything. What are the 1 or 2 things that will move the needle the most in the next 18 to 24 months? And then those will probably turn out to be way harder and more complicated than I thought. But that's fine. I only picked a couple, and we want to show early wins in order to get people believing that we just might change things. I think I mentioned when I was speaking with you and Josh, that first thing in May, to get the people working on the floor level behind things, I had to shake things up. They were so cynical that they believe anybody coming in is just another stuffed shirt who will be here for a few years trying to engineer their own career, and then they'll leave it and nothing will have changed. And so one of the things that I did was have them organize all of our events, recognitions, celebrations, volunteer activities.
Get their buy-in.
Well, really just so that they could have some place where they felt like they're in charge.
Exactly, yeah.
And really in the thing that meant a lot to them, because this is really, they're working with their friends. They want to enjoy coming into work every day. They want to feel like they believe in what we're doing. If they couldn't believe in maybe what the CEO is saying, but they could believe it when we did a toy drive and delivered toys to kids that don't have a Christmas.
And that was by finding out like what mattered to them. A lot of like what I'm hearing is like breaking down the barriers and like making sure that there's no like siloed team. My bad. There's no siloed teams, and making sure that at least there's a representative from each team coming together. And as a leader, you have to understand all of their motives and also provide the mission statement. Make sure they're all bought into the mission.
Yeah, I would say yes, with a caveat. At the big picture level, that's my job.
Like as a leader though.
Yes. What's the vision of what we're trying to do? Can people get behind that? Of course, we all like working in healthcare, but many people are so downtrodden in companies that they view that as just like shallow talk. You know what I mean? I want to really connect back to the people as to why do we even deserve to be paid here? What are we trying to do for the world that is worth paying for? So that's the first thing, is vision. Secondly, how do we architect it in a way? How do we divide up responsibilities and work into pieces that naturally belong together so people can get comfortable and build trust with each other? Let's say if I had one group working on histopathology and one working on molecular, those are different kinds of technology. And probably they have like different manufacturing and different regulatory and so on. So I'll call them a program. Here's the molecular program, here's the histopathology program. You guys, who's running this histopathology program? I want a commercial person, I want an R&D person, I want an operations person. What about the other side? Now, what are your goals for the year? Oh, you haven't figured out your goals? Why don't you guys get together and come back with what you think you should be working on based on what the company is trying to do? Because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to move the control from one person at the top to teams of people lower down the organization. The closer you can get the decision-making to the people who are doing the work, the more successful you'll be. Because they see the problems in a way that the people at the top can never see them. So that's why I'd say that part of my job is to understand what's going on at a big picture level, but a part of my job is to let go. Don't control everything, don't make the decisions. It would be actually the wrong decision. And where do we have not just one person, but as cross-functional and diverse of groups of people that are calling the shots for something that they're accountable for? That's really what got me that job in global portfolio management, is we had created like 4 programs, all of them cross-functional. And you could ask any one of them, like, what are you guys working on? And what are the problems you're trying to solve? And the team members would have the same truth. Whereas if you go to an old school company, ask R&D, ask marketing, ask operations, they have completely different views of the world, and they really hate talking to each other.
So it's kind of like democratizing everything, like making sure everybody can like have a voice at the table.
Yeah.
In a sense, like this, I don't know, but like, I don't know if you believe this, but maybe having the regular workers talk with, you know, maybe VPs, even C-suite people. So like,
I would
if there
demand
is problems, yeah, if there is problems, you know, from the ground up, because everything starts from the ground up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then,
Here's what I'll just to say something. Every time you have a management layer, the communication goes down between the top and the bottom.
yeah,
And by the time, let's say, if I have people who report to me, I know what they're working on. One of the people that work for them working on don't necessarily know unless we have goals and I have skip levels. 2, 3 levels down, I don't know what their experience is like. Somebody could be experiencing sexual harassment and I might not even know because maybe they're even afraid to speak up or some other kind of thing going on. So we need a lot of ways to get the information out on the table. And we also have to prove to people that you're not going to be retaliated against when you speak the truth. And I'm not just talking about sexual harassment. I'm talking about products that aren't working the way they're supposed to be working. And if I join the company and I have to clean up the mess, and I find out actually lots of people know about it and they've known about it for 10 years and nobody ever did anything about it. As a matter of fact, some people who tried to fix it lost their jobs.
yeah,
When that happens, nobody else will speak up.
yeah.
One way I can tell that's going on, sometimes those companies have posters in the hallway. Speak up culture. We have a speak up culture here. What they're really meaning is we need you guys to let us know when something is going on. But if you ask, why aren't people speaking up?
They don't feel safe.
They don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And I had like that, I mentioned that people team that I created that did the community events. They came back with like a little report on their take on speak up. And they said, the way we see it, speak up really should be accompanied by listen up. Because if people don't listen up, why would we speak up?
That's true.
And the speak up should be followed by follow up. If you say you're going to do something, but you never do it, why are we wasting our breath telling you what's going on? So they were more or less saying the real problem is management, and they need to take a dose of the medicine themselves. And then people over time will start to feel like if you rewarded people for
Yeah.
finding a problem, or promoted people for finding a problem, or preventing a problem, you know, then you would start to change the culture.
There's a lot of insight you have with just different teams, and it seems like over your career, you went from hard science to like became majorly science adjacent and more focused on development of teams.
Yeah.
Overall, do you feel like that was a natural progression for you to actually start Stratagem?
I think it's a blend. I guess ideally, you know, if you got a left brain and a right brain, it would be great if they're working in harmony, right? Scientific innovations and all of that, but also a place that people love to work in, where they feel appreciated, where they want to grow their careers. Like I went to different companies in part because I could not progress my career in one company. There's too many people occupying the seats, too many
Yeah.
blockers. So wouldn't it be great though, if you're at a company where you could actually work a lot of your career and still get like learning and progression? Roche was probably the best company I've worked for in terms of really taking their commitment to people seriously. And they still have water cooler talk and all that stuff, but I'd say generally speaking, they come down on the right side of wanting managers and leaders to walk the talk, and I appreciate that about them.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess I want to shift I have one last question before we open it up to everybody. You know, as we're all, you know, early career scientists and we're all trying to find, you know, let's say we're gonna go to the top of the North Star, you know, how would we go, like, what do you think we can look for? Well, what do you look for in emerging leaders? And how can they stand out in today's biotech system?
And what was the last part of it?
Like, how can we stand out in this new biotech ecosystem?
Yeah. It probably shifts a little bit. Early career, definitely you're being looked at for your expertise, and so they want more of that technical side. Later in your career, it's like setting up entire organizations and strategy for success. Middle of your career, it's making those two things work together, which is not easy, you know. You got an engine that produces the horsepower, you got wheels that put it on the ground. Transmission is in between and translates that power into momentum. So in middle management, that's where you're at. So I would just say that you need to be aware of where you're at in your career journey and bring the stuff that they're looking for at that point in your career. And I would just say problem solving and collaboration is universal, every stage of your career. Being positive minded, coming in with a good attitude, being somebody that people want to hang around, not people who are afraid of you or what have you. So I think that that's important. But I do think that like growth mindset and then practicing the behaviors that go with mindset and weed your garden. Look yourself in the mirror. Understand we all have flat spots. Funny part is a manager can get away with being controlling because they are controlling. They're doing the work that's in front of them. Director, so. VP, now it becomes something that could get you fired.
Mm.
And they're not even going to tell you you're going to be fired. They'll just replace you one day. And they'll bring in somebody who can do what you can't do. So if you don't do the work on yourself and see what's coming, then you're never going to be successful. So a lot of it is like really taking stock of yourself and maybe inviting what I would call a gift of feedback. Get people to tell you about yourself, not the good stuff, but the stuff nobody else will tell you. You're gonna have to develop some trusting relationships, but those people are gold. I had like one woman who worked for me at Roche, and she was very good at coming. Donald, you know, you just made kind of an ass of yourself in that town hall that we just had. And here's what you said that really, you know, got people worked up. I'd be like, wow, I didn't even think I said it that way. But now that you mentioned it, you just might be right. Let me go back and talk to the people to let them know that, you know, good intention, but really bad move on my part. Somebody like her, very valuable to me. So I would definitely say like find people who will tell you the truth and then work with that truth to kind of better yourself in the direction you want to go.
So how would you translate that into an interview though? That's kind of like what I was thinking.
Oh, I
Like,
see.
like how do we like stand out? How do we make ourselves stand out? From what I got, it's like we lean into our strengths right now. If we're in cancer or bioinformatics or regenerative medicine, it's like we're all like you have to lean into that since you said it's very technical in the beginning.
Well, that's one path. I would say one path is I'm the expert. Let me win a job that requires an expert and then go from there, right? The other one though would be to say like rather than trying to convince you, which is really like pushing something like, does anybody like a pushy salesperson? I don't, right? I want a consultative salesperson. What kind of car are you driving? Oh, really? How are you liking that? Oh, you're looking for something else? What are you actually looking for in a car? Are you transporting kids? Do you like to drive fast? Or whatever the case may be. So I'd say in interview, you have an amazing opportunity to learn what is going on. And if that's all you achieve and there's no job, you still benefited. But maybe you'll connect with a need where you say, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because I've been doing my work in this area, or here's some attributes that I think I have. And that would be like amazing if I could come in and solve that problem. Here's why I think I could do it. So I think there is a bit of selling that has to happen, but the more organic it is, the better. And also the more, like if I was in an interview, I probably would want to think back on it. Did I speak more than 50% of the time, or did they? And you know what the answer usually is, right? It's really great if I could ask some questions. Hey, what keeps you awake at night, or what are your top 2-3 goals this year? Where are you struggling with that? Now I can start to connect what I can do with the need people have. So I would just say that you want to be market led. You want to start with the problems people have or what they're trying to solve for, and fit yourself into that rather than just believe that they'll, buy into what you're selling.
It's like use your curiosity to promote your brand, basically, which is yourself.
Yeah, and
Right.
also the more that you can be open-minded and collaborative. I mean, you'll demonstrate in the interview some of the attributes that they may love or hate. And I would prefer that it's things that they've loved. Hey, when I do my interviews, then usually they're like you listened really well, and we connected on some things where I felt like you really heard what I'm looking for. So I would just say, you need to be in search of that magic thing, which could be a need that you could satisfy. But you also better dial back your expectations. Maybe your goal is that meeting one person, you come away with 3 names of people you could meet. Or hearing that there may be, a company you're interested in, they know somebody at that company. I will say this is the worst time in my memory to be applying for positions through LinkedIn or anything else that's on a job board. And it's because AI is killing us all, right? They're swamped with 1,000 resumes within an hour. All the resumes are tuned to the job description. And the HR don't even get back to you because they don't know what to do next, Probably they end up going to somebody they know and finding it through networking. So I would just say, be humans. Spend your time networking with other humans, and don't expect AI to help you. I mean, you could use it to get prepared, but what you want to do is get in front of people and have conversations, look them in the eyeball, and have a meeting of minds and values over what they're trying to work on. That would be my thought on it.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, be human and be curious.
Be
So,
curious.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that information and knowledge you just dropped on us right now. And now we're going to open up to, the audience if you have questions with the remaining time. So feel free to just shout out, raise your hand, whatever you want to do. Online as well. You can unmute yourself.
They can't.
And introduce yourself if you don't mind as we go around.
Yeah, I'm Momo.
Hey, Momo.
I finished my PhD. I defended my PhD 2 months ago.
Oh, good for you.
In bioinformatics, and especially focus on transcriptomics and spatial transcriptomics and neurodegeneration, for neurodegeneration. And now I work at Cares Life Sciences as an analyst in digital pathology operations.
Oh, fantastic.
And I basically my role is to figure out in the workflow where to use AI and how to improve the operations.
Great.
So that's what I was gonna ask you, because you mentioned the renewable skills, the importance of that.
Yeah.
And also thinking about platform technologies. And so now you mentioned that in your company, I guess we didn't get to touch that, but what problems are you solving? How are you approaching the use of AI-enabled diagnostics? And what solutions do you usually provide to your clients?
I guess the answer is it depends a little bit. Again, I have to connect with what's really going on there. I think one place where AI definitely can help is in taking away work that's mundane, that costs money, and that could be done, at lower cost with fewer errors. It's kind of like automation was 10, 15 years ago. Now AI is playing a part in that solution as well. And also reliable, repeatable documentation, because people hate writing, detailed reports that, are very standardized. So I would say there's a piece of it that has to do with the productivity. And then there's a piece of it that potentially has to do with the insights and being able to combine data sets, to get insights better, faster, cheaper from the medical perspective. You know, can we pick up the patient earlier? Is there more than one kind of sign or symptom or biomarker information that can be combined to get a better look at where they're at? So I think those are a couple of the places. But I would probably be on the lookout. I think the other thing we have to bear in mind is that you still have human capital. You need your people to be working on things that are meaningful to them. So change management is a huge part of that. Whose job is going to be impacted or obsoleted by this? Is there work they could be doing? Like, I would love to leave behind the humdrum stuff and work on the things that are more valuable. So if you do that for me, I probably will welcome AI. Whereas if I feel like you're secretly trying to eliminate my job, then I'm probably going to be as difficult as I could be, you know, along the way. But what about you? What are you finding? What resonates and what is stuck where you are?
Well, I'm very new in this. I just joined 2 months ago. What I have found is that, what I realize is that there is so many steps in the workflow. What I'm trying to comprehend is that how many particular steps goes on for a sample to be processed and analyzed and then at the end reported.
Right.
And so the number of all these little tasks that need to be done, which could mean that there's a lot of opportunities to use also AI in there, but at the same time, all those integrations seem to be a thing at this point. I'm noticing right now.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm fairly new to this and just.
One thing that'd be useful is to find out whether or not all of that has been documented somewhere. You know, I was talking to Josh earlier about sort of Lean Six Sigma as a thing, and it's a very valuable thing. It more or less says like, you can improve just about anything, but you have to have a baseline and you have to be able to measure so that you know what you're changing. And then you have to, in a way, you have to do it cautiously because you could cause a lot of problems at the same time. I fixed this one thing and 5 other things broke. In a clinical operation, that would be really bad. So I think knowing what you're messing with is really, really important. There's a thing called value stream mapping, which allows you to like actually visualize those steps, maybe even put some statistics around those steps. So that way, at least you're aware of kind of what you're tinkering with. But I would also, again, human organizations, talk to people. What's wrong with this picture? What do you think could happen? What should we be thinking about as we make changes? You know, how can we do a pilot and prove it in small scale before we try and scale it up? So I think a lot of it is really just continue to be curious and receptive and flexible as you try and implement these things. But definitely, I think like Lean Six Sigma has some tools that probably could be helpful, just so you have like a solid baseline for things that you're changing. Thanks, Momo.
All right, we have about like time for one more question.
I guess I talked too much.
No, you're good, you're good. So, one more.
I guess
And more.
to follow up on that question, my name is Anwar, I'm a PhD student in applied mathematics, and I work on organization algorithms applied to computational neuroscience and medical imaging.
Very cool.
So I wanted to ask you regarding the AI kind of bubble that's been happening now. You mentioned this AI-enabled healthcare and how it can be good to information consolidation. Do you see it getting too much into biomedical fields in this healthcare? Because I feel, from my perspective, at least in my research, I'm very cynical about how AI, like I haven't found good foundational models that are scalable, that can get lots of different problems. They're very either niche and they can like fail very kind of, or hallucinate. So that large language model will also fail very easily. So how do you see that transition? Because for me, I know I need to be flexible in terms of mindset, but
Yeah.
I can still be kind of cynical about the science behind it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when you read like thought leaders in this area, there really are in 2 camps. Some that believe like it will progress and sort of take over everything and you know, nothing but good. And then some who feel like, hey, we're already reaching the limits and some of these things can never be engineered, like hallucinations can never be engineered out. It goes with the generative capability of AI. So I don't know which way it'll turn out, to be honest. I think that your appetite for using AI probably has to be based on the risk of using AI. And so I'd say in critical applications in healthcare, got to be very careful about it. I would prefer to see that, for example, the LLMs and so on could help in automating the language and the transactions like that. But if it came down to diagnosing, I'd rather work with a machine learning algorithm or something that is 100% reproducible, doesn't introduce noise, doesn't introduce fiction into it. So I think it'll probably progress. How far it'll progress, I don't know. But I think that building in foundations of machine learning and things that could be trusted more can be very useful as a complement. The semantic layer is here and the diagnostic layer is here with a machine learning algorithm, that could be trusted. Plus, I mean, FDA and others are going to have something to say about it. There will be people who fly by night. They will get burned. Some of them will go to jail probably. And then the people will learn the lessons and the world will dial back. I never want to be on the bleeding edge like that. I want to be, if you're talking to healthcare, I want to be on the part that's very solid and trustworthy.
Do we have time for one more question? I think it might be pretty broadly applicable too.
Okay, we can do it, yeah.
Okay. So when I first started, I used to work at Cares Life Science too as well. When I first started there, I started just coming out of college. And one of the biggest things that I found there was when I started the company, I started at like very bench level position, accessioning, was being paid minimum wage. And what helped me actually grow inside of that was one, identifying a mentor that appreciated the excitement that I had for what the company was doing. And rather than telling me the barriers that were in the way of me moving up, they told me how I could kind of break down those barriers of moving up. And that was really beneficial because I got me back to school and moving up in the company, I got my H.D. license. So one thing I did notice though is when I became a supervisor, there were my reports under me that did have that clear idea or excitement of what they want to do, kind of had a leg up on everyone else because they kind of overshadowed people, like they were excited, so it was a lot easier to help them.
Yeah.
And that kind of clicked with me. I was like, okay, that's kind of unfair because there's a lot of other people here that do have hidden talents, but they're a little bit unsure.
Yeah.
And I, as a supervisor, I really struggled to identify ways to one, help people identify things that they are excited about or can help grow in. And then also for when it didn't line up with exactly what the company want, how we could still like help them grow in ways that would eventually like help their career make more money or different things like that,
Right.
or move up. So like in your time, have you had similar situations where you are still trying to like help your reports grow and maybe it's not in the way that the company wants, but you still want to see these people improve and be able to, move up in life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we share the road for a little while. When we're at a company and I have direct reports, we're not going to be there forever with each other. We're there for a period of time. And preferably, we both come out of it with something, having gained something from that. And so part of that is understanding who they are, what they're trying to do, rather than me tell them, hey, I think you're perfect as a supervisor, and I never want you to change. I want you to be a supervisor forever because you're so good at it. I need to talk about, well, where do you really want to be? And by the way, how much time do you think you've got this supervisor left in you? So I prefer to have conversations about career very systematically. And I want to know the position you're in now and where you think it might go. And it could be anything from I want to retire to I want your job to I want to get out of the company. If I could get them to tell the real truth about it, we can work together. I've helped people get out of companies. I've helped people get my job and I went on somewhere else and they got my job. It's fine, right? But we have to start on a basis of trust. So that's the first thing. And secondly, everybody's different and we can't assume that we know what their motivations are. And so the more we can ask open-ended questions and show them it's safe to speak up, then I think we're going to get to the good stuff where we can really find a way to collaborate effectively. So there's a lot more we can say about it, but I think that would be a couple of ideas. Does it resonate or did you find something worked for you?
There was a lot. Open-ended questions were a big one, working with my reports. It took me a little bit to just learning how to devise my energy, that the people that kind of had a clear direction of showing them how to push on that way, but they already had that motivation instilled a little bit. So I was kind of like, I had to put the brakes on and be like, okay, I'm giving them a lot of attention, especially in terms of how that can be viewed with other
Yes,
people. It's like,
yes.
I'm prioritizing this person and that's really unfair.
Yeah.
So I started spending more time, even in like when I would like meet with people for one-on-ones, my first questions inside of a one-on-one would be nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
It would literally be like, so for instance, like one report was like an older woman that had multiple daughters.
Mhm.
So I would ask about, okay, your daughter just went on this trip 2 weeks ago. How'd that go?
Yeah.
Your daughter just published this paper. Can I see the paper? Like, let me
Yeah.
see that. And starting out with that, and that helped out quite a bit. And then also talking about prior work experiences, seeing what people did in the past. Because usually people a lot of times, especially like as you're going through like people with the crazy backgrounds and stuff, and it's cool to learn more about that too, and people are excited to share that. But it did, the pain points were when the company wanted something else out of someone.
Yeah.
But for instance, they had like a bunch of art, like experience and like design experience that like could be beneficial to the company. But pushing them from a certain role that was like, this is your role duties, into that kind of like extracurricular type of thing,
Right.
it was hard to kind of make that fit in.
I mean, my personal philosophy is talent mobilization. It's not okay to sit on people and protect them and prevent them from going anywhere. We want to hold them up and shine a light. So I would do, for example, get all the managers together. We're going to be grading people or looking at careers and that kind of thing. I want you to put your people on the table. Not what are they doing today? What could they be doing? What else could they be doing? And you'd be surprised at the resistance you get from that. So you have to say, no, it's going to be twice a year and everybody will participate. If you don't feel like you can participate, that's fine. Don't be a manager here. Go find something else to do, because that's what we do. And we're here for the people. So the second thing is you got to be people centric. If you actually don't care about people, just don't be a manager. There's plenty of jobs that really smart people could do where you don't have to take care of people. I had one senior director, I had to put him on a performance plan 2 years in a row to convince him to not be a people manager, but rather be an expert instead. And the reason was, when I talked to his people, like if number one, he takes all the good work for himself. He loves the intellectual challenge, so he'll give them the grunt work and do the cool stuff himself. Number two, anytime they talk about their family situation or their career, he starts to check his watch or fall asleep or something like that. And so I named those for him. I said, the two pieces of feedback we're getting, overly controlling and really not growing people, and also not invested in your people's careers, not showing up well. He didn't like it, didn't agree, but and it happened the second year. I said, 2 years, even though I told you the first year and we're getting the same feedback, this is not going to work. The choices are probably there can't be a third year. We have to do something else. So we ended up experimenting with him, taking on a senior strategy role for an entire product line, all of our automation. And he ended up doing really well in that. And so he let go of his direct reports. You need 5 people, we'll give you 5 people. You could borrow them to do the work, but you're not going to be their manager, because the manager has to actually care about the people. So let me leave it at that and just say that, leaders really should care about people. If they don't, then if you're working for a leader that doesn't care about people, you may want to find another place to work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all that. And that concludes the session with Donald. Let's give a round of applause.